The desert wind carried red dust through the streets of Sedona as Maya Torres stepped out of her small adobe-style apartment on Jordan Road. The morning sun painted Cathedral Rock in shades of burnt orange and deep crimson, casting long shadows across the town that had become her unlikely home 3 years ago. She was 28 now, old enough to have learned that some truths are better kept hidden, especially the ones that make you sound like you've spent too much time meditating under the vortex sites tourists flocked to by the hundreds. She pulled her canvas messenger bag over her shoulder and began the familiar walk toward Tlaquepaque Arts and Shopping Village, where she worked at a small independent bookstore called Red Rock Reads. The October air was crisp, carrying the scent of juniper and pine from the surrounding hills. Maya had moved here from Phoenix after finishing her graduate degree in library science, drawn by the promise of a quieter life. But the real reason, the one she barely admitted to herself, was that Sedona felt like a place where her peculiar way of seeing the world might not seem quite so strange, because Maya saw things. Not visions, not auras in the New Age sense that tourists paid $50 to have photographed. What she perceived was simpler and somehow more profound, a subtle luminosity that appeared around people in moments of genuine kindness. It wasn't bright or dramatic. It was more like the difference between warm lighting and harsh fluorescence, a quality of presence that shifted when someone acted from authentic compassion. She had noticed it first as a child in Tucson, where she'd grown up in a working-class neighborhood near the university. Her mother worked 2 jobs, and Maya would sit in the hospital lobby after school, waiting for her mother's shift to end. That's where she first saw it clearly. A nurse named Patricia worked the pediatric floor. Maya watched her countless times, the way she moved through corridors with particular gentleness, how she would crouch down to meet children at eye level. And there was something else, a warmth that seemed to emanate from her, especially when she thought no one was watching. When Patricia sat with a crying child, stayed late to finish a puzzle with a lonely patient, advocated fiercely for a family who didn't speak English well, that's when Maya saw it most clearly. Young Maya had tried to explain it once to her mother during the bus ride home. "Patricia glows when she's being nice," she'd said simply. Her mother had smiled, distracted and exhausted. "That's because she's a good person, Mija. You can see that about people if you pay attention." And Maya had left it at that, accepting the explanation even though she knew it wasn't quite right. What she saw wasn't metaphorical. It was perceptual, consistent, and utterly confounding. By the time Maya reached high school, she'd developed a careful system of observation and silence. She watched people closely, gathering information that helped her navigate social dynamics with unusual insight, but she never spoke about what she saw. She'd learned that lesson the hard way at 14, when she'd tried to explain to her best friend why she trusted their quiet lab partner more than their popular chemistry teacher. "You sound crazy," her friend had said, not unkindly, but with enough discomfort that Maya had laughed it off and never brought it up again. The bookstore appeared ahead, its turquoise door bright against the stucco walls. Maya unlocked the front entrance, flipping the sign to open, and breathing in the familiar scent of paper, coffee, and lavender incense. She was arranging a display of Mary Oliver poetry when the door chimed and the first customer entered. A regular who browsed the metaphysical section, always friendly, but in that slightly performative way. There was no glow, no warmth beyond ordinary pleasantness. Most people lived in that middle space, not particularly selfless, not particularly selfish, just ordinarily human. Around 11:30, Maya noticed a commotion outside the store's window. An elderly man had stumbled on the uneven cobblestones, his cane clattering away. Before Maya could move toward the door, someone else was already there, a man who had been sitting on a plaza bench. He moved quickly, but not frantically, helping the man upright with careful hands, retrieving the cane and making sure both the man and his wife were steady before stepping back. The whole interaction took maybe 30 seconds. The elderly couple thanked him profusely, and the man said something brief. Maya couldn't hear the words, but she could see his posture, slightly embarrassed by the attention, already stepping away. And there it was, the glow. Not metaphorical, not imagined, but present in a way that made Maya's breath catch. It surrounded him like warmth radiates from a fire, visible in the quality of his movements, the set of his shoulders, the way he'd moved without hesitation or expectation of recognition. But this man's glow was different, stronger, not brighter in a visual sense, but steadier, more present, as if kindness wasn't an occasional choice for him, but a fundamental orientation toward the world. He returned to his bench, pulling a worn paperback from his jacket pocket and settling back into reading. He was probably in his mid-30s, dressed in worn jeans and a flannel shirt, with work boots that had seen plenty of use. There was nothing remarkable about his appearance. He could have been a contractor, a hiking guide, any of the working-class men who kept Sedona functioning behind its expensive spiritual tourism facade. After about 15 minutes, he stood and walked off toward the main highway. Daydreaming again. Diane's voice made Maya jump. Her boss had entered through the back door, carrying her usual oversized coffee. "Just watching the plaza," Maya said, turning back to her shelving. "You okay? You seem distant." "I'm fine, just thinking." "About?" Maya hesitated, then decided on a version of the truth. "About how you can tell when someone's genuinely kind versus just performing kindness." Diane considered this. "I suppose genuinely kind people don't think about it much. They just do what needs doing. The ones performing it are always checking to see if anyone noticed." "Exactly," Maya said, feeling relief at being understood, even partially. That evening, Maya took her usual route home, cutting through a residential area. She'd almost reached her street when she saw him again. The man from the plaza was standing in the driveway of a modest ranch-style house, unloading tools from an old pickup truck. An elderly woman emerged from the house, moving carefully with a walker. The man immediately set down his toolbox and walked over to her, listening as she gestured toward the side of the house. The glow was there again, steady and warm, present in the way he listened with full attention, the way he didn't rush her through her explanation. That night, alone in her apartment with its view of distant red rocks, Maya sat by her window and thought about the strange mathematics of visibility. She'd spent her whole life seeing something that seemed invisible to everyone else, and it had made her feel simultaneously privileged and isolated. But maybe, she thought, watching the stars emerge above Cathedral Rock, maybe the point wasn't to share it. Maybe the point was simply to bear witness, to pay attention to the kind of goodness that usually went unnoticed. And maybe there was something she was supposed to learn from this particular person, whose light burned steadier than any she'd encountered before. The morning air held a sharp chill that promised winter wasn't far behind. Maya wrapped her hands around her travel mug as she walked to work, watching her breath cloud in the crystalline air. She'd spent the past week noticing things. The man from the plaza appeared in her peripheral awareness with strange frequency. She'd see his truck parked outside various houses in older neighborhoods. Twice she'd spotted him at Basha's grocery store. Once she'd passed him on the trail at Red Rock Crossing, that same paperback in his hands. Each time, Maya felt the same steady warmth emanating from him, that consistent quality of presence that suggested his kindness wasn't situational, but intrinsic. "You're doing it again," Diane said, making Maya startle. "Doing what?" "That thing where you stare into the middle distance, like you're trying to solve a philosophical problem." "It's nothing, just distracted." "I need you to do me a favor this afternoon," Diane said. "We're getting a delivery from Samuel. He does woodwork, makes custom shelving. I commissioned a new display case for the local authors section. Can you meet him at the storage unit around 3? "Samuel?" "Samuel Chen. Doesn't talk much, but solid as they come. Does a lot of work for the community center, too. Builds things for free when they need it." Something in Maya's chest tightened. "What does he look like?" Diane glanced at her curiously. "Mid-30s, Asian American, usually in work clothes?" "Why?" Maya kept her expression neutral. Just want to know who I'm looking for. At 2:45, she drove Diane's van to the storage facility on the outskirts of town. At 3:02, she heard an engine and turned to see a familiar truck pulling into the lot. The man who climbed out was definitely the one from the plaza. He walked toward her with a hand raised in greeting. "You must be from Red Rock Reeds," he said, his voice quiet and low. "I'm Samuel. Sorry I'm a couple minutes late." "Maya," she managed, shaking his offered hand. "I'm excited to see what you've made." He unlocked the storage unit, revealing a meticulously organized workspace. And there, in the center, was the bookcase. Maya stepped closer, genuinely awed. The piece was beautiful. The wood glowed with a deep honey color, every joint seamless, every edge smooth. It was clearly built to last generations. "This is extraordinary," Maya said softly. "You built this entire thing by hand?" "Mostly. The joinery's all traditional. Things that'll hold up." He stood with his hands in his pockets, watching her with mild embarrassment at her praise. "How long have you been doing woodworking?" "Since I was a kid. My grandfather taught me. He was a master carpenter in Taiwan before he immigrated." Samuel checked something on the back panel. "This is red oak from a sustainable mill in Oregon. Diane said she wanted something that would honor the books it held, not just contain them." There it was again, that quality of attention, of taking pride in work done right, not for recognition, but simply because it mattered. They worked together to move the bookcase into the van. The whole process took maybe 10 minutes, but Maya found herself hyper-aware of his quiet competence. "Tell Diane to text me when it's in place," Samuel said. "I want to make sure it sits level." Maya hesitated, then risked the question. "Diane mentioned you do work for the community center?" "Some. Build shelves, fix things that break. They don't have much budget for that, so I help out when I can." "That's kind of you." "Not really. Just makes sense. They do good work. They need functional space." Over the following weeks, Maya found herself seeking small opportunities to learn more. She volunteered at the community center's Thanksgiving program, where she spotted Samuel helping set up tables. She started shopping at the smaller grocery store where she'd seen him. Once, she saw him helping a young mother whose car had broken down. Each observation added another piece to the puzzle. Samuel was consistently present in moments that required quiet kindness. He didn't volunteer for attention. He simply showed up, did what needed doing, and left. It was early December when Maya finally had a real conversation with him. She'd started trail running in the mornings, and on a cold Wednesday she encountered him coming down the Soldier Pass trail. "Morning," he said, stepping aside to let her pass. "Morning." Maya paused, catching her breath. "How was it up there?" "Clear. You can see all the way to Flagstaff. Worth the climb." They stood there for a moment, two people on a trail with no particular reason to continue talking, but no immediate reason to leave either. "I see you up here a lot," Samuel said. "I like the quiet. Helps me think." He nodded as if this made perfect sense. "That's why I come. Too much noise in town. Do you mind if I ask what you're always reading?" Samuel pulled the book from his pocket. "The Art of Living" by Thich Nhat Hanh. "Buddhist philosophy. Helps keep perspective." "Are you Buddhist?" "Not officially. I grew up Catholic, but I've always found Buddhist ideas about compassion and right action more useful." He smiled slightly. "My grandmother would have had opinions about that." Maya laughed. "Mine too. She worries about my soul constantly." "Does she have reason to worry?" "Only if not going to Mass regularly is damning. I tend to find spirituality in other places. Books, nature, watching how people treat each other." Something shifted in Samuel's expression, real interest rather than polite conversation. "That last one's interesting. Watching how people treat each other." Maya felt suddenly exposed. You can learn a lot about someone's character from how they act when they think no one's watching. True, although I think the real test is whether they act the same way when people are watching. Samuel tucked the book back into his pocket. "Most kindness is performative. Real compassion doesn't change based on the audience." It was so close to her own thoughts that Maya felt a rush of recognition. That's exactly right. The difference between doing good and being good. Yeah. Samuel glanced up the trail. I should let you finish your run. But if you ever want to talk philosophy or books, I'm usually at Java Love on Saturday mornings. I might take you up on that. That Saturday, Maya found herself at Java Love. Samuel was there at a corner table working on design sketches. Hey, Maya said. He looked up. Hey, want to sit? Before she could respond, he was at the counter ordering her a cappuccino. They settled into conversation easily, talking about books at first. He was well-read, with tastes that ran toward philosophy and nature writing. Maya found herself relaxing, enjoying the simple pleasure of talking with someone whose mind worked in interesting ways. Can I ask you something? Samuel said eventually. Sure. That thing you said on the trail, about finding spirituality in watching how people treat each other, did you mean that literally? Maya hesitated. This was territory she usually kept guarded, but something about Samuel's steady attention made her want to try. More literally than most people would understand, she said carefully. I've always been sensitive to the quality of people's interactions. I can tell when someone's being authentic versus performing. It's not psychic, just observation, but it's something I've noticed my whole life. Samuel considered this thoughtfully, like reading micro-expressions. Sort of, but more holistic. It's about the whole person, the way their presence changes based on their intentions. That makes sense, Samuel said. I think most people could do that if they paid attention. We're just trained not to notice. Easier to take people at face value. They talked for 2 hours. When they finally left, Samuel asked, "Same time next Saturday?" "Yeah, I'd like that." The Saturday meetings became a fixed point in Maya's week. She learned about his life in increments. He'd grown up in San Francisco, his parents worked in tech, he'd been expected to follow the same path, but chose woodworking instead. "They thought I was wasting my potential," Samuel told her one December morning. "MIT acceptance, full ride, and I turned it down for community college and an apprenticeship. My dad didn't speak to me for 2 years. Do you regret it?" "No. I would have been miserable in computer science. I'm good with my hands, with making things that last." It was mid-January when things shifted. The community center director, Rosa, pulled Maya aside. "You know Samuel Chen?" Rosa asked. "We're friends." "Good. Maybe you can help me with something. Samuel's been doing repair work here for almost 8 years. Never charges us. Always shows up when something breaks. We want to honor him at our annual fundraiser next month, but every time I bring it up, he changes the subject." "That sounds like him. I was hoping you could help convince him." That Saturday, Maya brought it up carefully. Samuel's reaction was immediate and uncomfortable. "I don't want an award," he said flatly. "That's not why I do it." "I know. But Rosa has a point. You've helped a lot of people. They can say thank you privately. They don't need to make a thing of it." Samuel pushed his coffee away. "The moment you make helping people into a performance, it stops being about helping. I don't think anyone's questioning your motivations. I don't need to be honored. I need to be left alone to do what I do." The conversation ended tensely with Samuel leaving early. Maya didn't hear from him for a week. It was the following Saturday when he finally texted, "Can we talk? I owe you an explanation." They met at his place for the first time. The interior was modest but carefully maintained, with furniture he'd obviously built himself. Samuel handed her a mug and sat down. "I'm sorry for how I reacted. You didn't deserve that. You don't have to apologize." "No, you were right to bring it up. The thing is, there's a reason I'm careful about recognition." He wrapped his hands around his mug. "When I was 24, I killed someone. The words landed like stones. It was a car accident," Samuel continued, his voice flat. "I was driving home from a job site, exhausted, and I ran a red light, T-boned a sedan. The driver, a woman named Jennifer Harrison, 36, mother of 2, died at the scene. I walked away with a concussion and broken ribs. Samuel, I was charged with vehicular manslaughter. Got probation and community service because I had no record and wasn't drinking or speeding, just exhausted and careless, which somehow made it worse. He looked up, and Maya saw something raw in his expression. Her family was in court. Her husband, her kids, her parents. They looked at me like I was a monster, which I was. I took their wife, their mother, their daughter, because I was too tired to pay attention. It was an accident. Accidents have consequences. She's still dead. Her kids still grew up without a mother. Samuel's jaw tightened. After the trial, I couldn't stay in Portland. I came here, started over, took my grandfather's advice about right action, about trying to live in a way that honors the life I took. The community service, the repairs, that's all. Penance, atonement. I can't bring Jennifer back, but I can try to be useful, to help people who need help, to pay attention and show up. It doesn't balance the scales, but it's what I have. So you see why I don't want awards. I'm not doing this to be a good person. I'm doing it because I took a life through carelessness. They sat in silence. Can I tell you what I see when I look at you? Maya said finally. Samuel glanced up. I see someone who made a terrible mistake and chose to spend the rest of his life trying to live differently. Someone who shows up for people, who builds things that last, who treats service as responsibility. She leaned forward. What happened was tragic, but what you've built from it, that matters too. You don't think I'm just trying to feel better about myself? I think if that's all it was, you wouldn't be so consistent. You wouldn't refuse recognition. You wouldn't do the work when no one's watching. Samuel's eyes were bright with tears. I think about her every day. Her kids would be teenagers now. I know, and you'll probably carry that the rest of your life, but you're also helping people who need help. That doesn't erase what happened, but it means something. They talked for hours, Samuel sharing more about the accident, the years of therapy, his slow journey towards something resembling peace. When Maya finally left, Samuel walked her to her car. Thank you, he said, for listening, for not being horrified. I'm not horrified by you. Maya hesitated. Actually, I've always seen something remarkable in you. A quality of presence, of care. It was part of why I wanted to know you better. Even knowing what you know now, especially knowing what you know now, because the person I saw wasn't an accident. It was a choice you made every day. Samuel nodded slowly. I'll think about the recognition thing. Over the following weeks, Maya watched Samuel wrestle with the decision. In late January, she tried one more time. I understand that you see your actions as penance, Maya said, but the people you're helping don't experience it that way. Your motivation is your own, but the impact is theirs. So you think I should accept? I think refusing it might be more about protecting yourself than genuine humility. Sometimes letting people thank you is a gift you give them. Samuel looked at her for a long moment. When did you get so wise? I've spent a lot of time watching people. In early February, Samuel agreed to be honored at the fundraiser with the focus on the work, not his personal story. The night of the event, Maya arrived early to help set up. Samuel arrived right on time, looking uncomfortable in khakis and a button-down. When Rosa called him to the stage, he went reluctantly. She spoke warmly about his years of service, the countless repairs and building projects. The applause was genuine and extended. Later, after most people had left, Samuel found Maya helping stack chairs. You were right, he said simply. About what? About letting people thank me. It felt okay. Not like I was claiming virtue, just acknowledging that the work mattered to them. They worked together in comfortable silence, cleaning up the hall. It was nearly midnight when they stepped out into the cold February night. Can I tell you something? Samuel said. Always. Meeting you changed things for me. The way you pay attention, it reminded me that observation is its own form of care. Having someone see me clearly, knowing what you know, it made me feel less alone. Maya's breath caught. That's how I feel too. They stood in the parking lot under impossibly bright stars. I should tell you something, Maya said. That thing I mentioned about watching people, it's more specific than I made it sound. Okay. I see something. Around people, when they act from genuine kindness, a warmth, a quality of presence. I've seen it my whole life, and I've never told anyone. Samuel was quiet for a moment. Like an aura? Not exactly. More like the difference between artificial light and sunlight. And with you, it's always been especially strong. Is it there now? Maya looked at him. Yes. So you've been seeing my best self this whole time. I see what's there, whether you see it or not. Coffee next Saturday, Samuel asked. Wouldn't miss it. As Maya drove home, she thought about visibility and value, about seeing goodness and being seen as good. Samuel carried both the weight of terrible harm and the reality of consistent care. He was neither saint nor villain, but simply human, trying to live better. And maybe that was what her gift had been teaching her, that goodness wasn't about perfection, but about the daily choice to show up with care and attention. Spring came to Sedona with sudden intensity, transforming the desert from winter browns to explosive greens. Wildflowers appeared overnight, painting the hillsides in scarlet, yellow, and purple. Maya's relationship with Samuel had settled into something comfortable and charged with possibility. Their Saturday coffee had expanded into hiking together on Sundays, occasional dinners, and easy text exchanges throughout the week. They hadn't labeled what was growing between them, but there was tenderness there, a sense that they were moving towards something neither had fully articulated yet. It was late March when Maya first noticed the change. She was at Java Love, waiting for Samuel, when she saw a woman pick up a wallet that an older man had dropped. A small gesture, casual kindness. But when Maya looked at the woman, expecting to see the familiar glow of genuine kindness, there was nothing. Just an ordinary person, moving through an ordinary moment. Maya blinked, confused, and looked again. Still nothing. The glow that had defined her perception her entire life was absent. When Samuel arrived 10 minutes later, Maya was still disoriented. "You okay?" he asked. "You look like you've seen a ghost." "I think something's wrong with me." "What do you mean?" Maya glanced around, ensuring no one was listening. "That thing I told you about, the way I see people when they're being genuinely kind. It's gone. I just watched someone do something nice, and I saw nothing unusual." Samuel's expression shifted to curiosity. "When did this start?" "Just now. This morning." "Is that necessarily bad?" The question surprised her. "I've had this my whole life. Without it, I feel blind." Samuel reached across the table and took her hand. "Maybe it's not gone. Maybe it just changed. Or maybe you don't need it the same way anymore." Over the following days, Maya confirmed what she'd begun to suspect. Her ability to perceive the glow had vanished. She watched carefully, but saw only what anyone else would see. People being kind or unkind, with no special perceptual marker to distinguish authentic compassion from performance. The loss felt profound and disorienting. "Talk to me," Samuel said one evening as they sat by Oak Creek. "I feel like I've lost a sense, like the world's just duller now." "But you can still see kindness, right? Just without the special effect?" "I guess, but it's not the same. Now I have to actually pay attention to behavior over time. Before I just knew." Samuel picked up a smooth stone. "Can I offer a different perspective?" "Please. Maybe what you had was training wheels, a way to learn to recognize genuine kindness until you could do it without the assist. And now you've developed the skill enough that you don't need it anymore. You think I outgrew it? Or maybe you found what you were looking for. Once you have genuine connection with someone whose goodness you trust, maybe the perceptual gift isn't necessary anymore. Are you saying this happened because of you? I'm saying maybe it happened because you found what you were looking for. Real connection with someone whose goodness you trust. Once you have that, maybe the gift isn't necessary. What if I made it all up? What if it was never real, just some elaborate delusion? Do you believe that?" "I don't know what I believe anymore." Samuel turned to face her fully. "Let's think this through. You've been seeing this glow since childhood, consistently across years and contexts. That's not how delusions work. Maybe I just got really committed. Or maybe you genuinely perceived something real, something about intention, about authenticity, in a way most people can't. And maybe that perception served its purpose, and now you're ready to navigate without it. What purpose? Teaching you to recognize goodness, showing you that genuine kindness exists, helping you develop moral clarity that most people struggle to achieve. Samuel reached for her hand. Maya, you see people with extraordinary accuracy. That didn't come from a supernatural gift. It came from years of observation that the gift facilitated. You trained yourself to recognize authentic care, and now you have that skill, whether or not you can still see the glow. Maya felt tears threatening. What if I stop being able to see it in you? Do you need the glow to know I care about you? To know I show up when I say I will, that I listen, that I try to be worthy of your attention? His voice was gentle. The glow might be gone, but I'm still here. If you can see that without the special perception, doesn't that actually mean more? They sat by the creek until full dark, examining her fear and loss from every angle. Samuel shared his own experience of losing what he'd relied on, the certainty of his old life before the accident. The first year after, I felt like I was walking on ice constantly, he said. Everything I'd thought I knew about myself was gone. It was terrifying, but it also gave me the chance to build something truer. You think that's what this is? I think it's a chance to discover that you don't need the gift to do what you've always done. Pay attention to what matters. Recognize goodness. Trust your judgment. You're just doing it the way everyone else has to do it now. Over the following weeks, Maya slowly adjusted to her new way of seeing. She paid attention to people's actions over time, watched for consistency, developed trust through the slow accumulation of reliable care. It was messier than before, more uncertain, requiring more faith and vulnerability. But Samuel was right. She found she was still good at seeing people accurately. The years of watching had trained her in observation. She noticed the small tells that indicated sincerity, the patterns that revealed character. And with Samuel, she didn't need the glow to recognize what she'd always seen. His care was evident in how he showed up consistently, how he listened, how he acted in accordance with his values. The warmth she'd perceived hadn't been about supernatural vision. It had been her recognition of his authentic kindness, and she could still see that clearly without any special ability. It was late April when Maya realized the loss had actually freed her. She'd always kept herself slightly apart, afraid that revealing her perception would make her seem strange. But without it, she could engage more fully, more openly. She told Samuel about this revelation one Sunday morning on the Cathedral Rock Trail. I think I've been hiding behind the gift my whole life, she said, as they sat on a boulder, watching sunrise spread across the valley, using it as a reason to observe rather than participate. Like I was special because I could see this thing, but also isolated because no one else could. And now? Now I'm just a person who cares about kindness and pays attention to it, which is something I can share with people without sounding strange. Samuel smiled. So the loss gave you permission to be more yourself, not less. Yeah, exactly that. They sat in comfortable silence, watching the desert come alive in morning light. Can I ask you something? Samuel said after a while. Always. The glow you used to see around me. Do you miss it? Maya considered carefully. Sometimes. It was nice confirmation, but I trust what I see now more than what I saw then, because now I'm seeing you through normal human perception, building trust through experience. That feels more real than any special ability ever did. Even knowing what you know about my past, especially knowing that, because it means I'm choosing to trust you, not because some gift tells me you're good, but because I've watched you be consistently good. That's a choice based on evidence and experience, not supernatural insight. Samuel turned to face her fully, vulnerable in a way she'd rarely seen. I need to tell you something, okay? I'm falling in love with you. Actually, I probably already have fallen, and I need you to know that before this goes any further. Maya's heart kicked against her ribs. She'd felt it building, but hearing him say it made it real in a way that was both exciting and terrifying. "Samuel, you don't have to say anything right now. I just needed you to know." Maya reached for his hand. "I'm scared." "Of what?" "Of being wrong about you. Of building something on observation and trust and having it fall apart. Of being just as fallible as everyone else." She took a breath. "But I'm also falling in love with you, and that scares me more because it matters so much." "We could both be wrong about each other," Samuel said. "That's the risk of being human. But I'd rather take that risk with you than avoid it and miss this." They kissed there on Cathedral Rock, with the sunrise painting the world gold and red. Two people who'd found each other across their separate forms of seeing. It wasn't dramatic, just tender and real, a beginning rather than a culmination. In the months that followed, Maya and Samuel built something both ordinary and extraordinary. They navigated the messiness of relationship, disagreements, the work of learning each other's patterns, the vulnerability of being fully seen without supernatural assistance. Maya discovered that trusting someone without her gift meant developing a different kind of faith, one based on accumulated evidence rather than perceptual certainty. But she also discovered that this kind of trust was deeper precisely because it required risk. Every time Samuel showed up as promised, every time his actions aligned with his words, it built something solid, something earned, rather than simply perceived. It was early autumn, almost a year after Maya's gift had vanished, when she had a moment of recognition that brought everything full circle. She was at the community center, watching Samuel patiently teach a young boy how to use a handsaw. He was completely focused on the child, explaining each step carefully, celebrating small successes. And Maya saw it, not with supernatural vision, but with clear human observation. The quality of Samuel's care, the authenticity of his attention. It was exactly what she'd always perceived as the glow, but now she recognized it for what it truly was. Genuine goodness made visible through consistent action and authentic care. She didn't need a special gift to see it anymore. She just needed to pay attention. That night, lying beside Samuel in the home they'd begun to build together, Maya thought about the journey that had brought her here. She'd spent her whole life seeing something most people couldn't, feeling isolated by perception that set her apart. But the real gift had never been the supernatural vision. It had been learning to recognize and value genuine kindness in a world that often overlooked it. The glow hadn't disappeared. She'd just learned to see it the way it actually existed, not as a perceptual phenomenon, but as a moral reality, visible to anyone who chose to pay attention. "What are you thinking about?" Samuel asked, his voice drowsy in the darkness. "About light," Maya said, "about how the truest light doesn't need special eyes to see it. It just needs someone willing to look." Samuel pulled her closer. "And what do you see?" Maya smiled against his shoulder. "I see you, really see you. And that's more than enough." Outside, the stars wheeled above Sedona's red rocks. But inside that small house, two people had found each other across the distance of their separate struggles, building something real from observation and trust and the simple choice to show up with care. The girl who could see the glow of good deeds had learned the deeper truth, that goodness wasn't a magical quality some people possessed, while others lacked. It was a daily practice, a consistent choice, a way of moving through the world that anyone could cultivate. And recognizing it didn't require a supernatural gift. It only required attention, humility, and the willingness to honor small acts of care as the profound moral achievements they truly were. Maya had lost her special vision, but she'd gained something more valuable, the ability to see clearly without it, to trust based on evidence and experience, to build love on the solid ground of consistent care rather than the shaky foundation of perceptual certainty. The glow, she finally understood, had never been about seeing something others couldn't. It had been about learning to value something others often overlooked. And that lesson, once truly learned, didn't need supernatural reinforcement. It just needed to be lived.